And finally, for our last business intervention before coffee, I'd like to invite Jake Layes to the stage. Jake is a director at Autodesk. He's the Sustainability and Market Development for North Africa, Europe, and Asia Pacific. North America, sorry. Europe and Asia Pacific. I was going to make a joke that I can't really make it now, which I was going to say, it'd be easier to say he looks after the world except Africa. Jake.
Thank you. Okay, I'll start with something very different today. I'd like to share with you a realization I had not too long ago, not at a conference and not in the office, but at a school assembly. This is my son's school assembly. You see the 17 goals they are projected to the wall. The school in that year, in groups of 3, the kids went and picked a goal and did a little project of raising the awareness on that particular goal. And he walked up to me one day and he said, "Papa, you have to exercise more, because if you don't, you become obese, you get heart disease and diabetes." And I realized, first of all, there's great awareness, but really it's personal. I was in Bonn last week, and it's interesting to see outside of the government negotiations, to see businesses taking up a position to work on climate actions, as well as sub-national governments, and specifically cities. And if the projections are right, we see 10 billion people by 2050, 75% in cities. So that means we have to build 1,000 cities for the next 33 years. 1,000 cities a day. $3.3 trillion spent in infrastructure, and the volume of construction will raise by 85%. So we don't want to do this the way we've done it before. We want to work towards a low-carbon future, because cities really are very, very sensitive to what happens in climate. Not just because of the extreme weathers, but also because of the change of demographics and lifestyles. If you think of 1,000 buildings a day, there's a lot of lifestyles that are connected to this as well. And cities already make 80% of world's GDP. And you drill even further down into buildings, you will see that buildings consume 40% of global energy, contribute to greenhouse gas emissions tremendously, but also waste a lot of energy, and it costs the US every year $60 billion. That's the US alone, so I don't have the number for worldwide there. So we look at this as a technology company a little differently. The technology has always been something that enables or shapes what gets done. And as things can be done more cheaper and quicker, there is a role to play, because Autodesk provides tools that basically help you make anything. So we want to help architects, engineers, designers to build towards a low carbon, if possible, a zero carbon, zero waste future. And we do this in a number of ways. In the built environment space, it's all about building high-performance environments. And the way this is basically working is that you either do this with a new building and start modeling it in a way that, if the video runs here, let me see. If you can just click on making the video run. So you start modeling out a building, and very early in the process start identifying where are the opportunities, so I can make this a zero energy building, or where I can make this a building that allows you to actually, you're going forward, sorry. to come towards a net zero building if possible. You can do the same thing with cities in a similar way. So you can identify the buildings that needs to be retrofitted. You can do stormwater analysis, and you can also build the case for social, environmental, and financial impacts. Okay, you can go back to the slides, please. We live in a world of global connectivity. The Gartner projects that there will be 8 billion connected devices by the end of 2017. So what do all these devices do? For cities specifically, and other ways of building smartness, it's harnessing that connectivity between human needs and human beings and technology. Yesterday in the SG11 panel, it was about not to dehumanize cities, but ensure that cities are really future-proof assets where generations on generations will live and enjoy living. There's another way of harnessing the connectivity. 95% of global world's population has 2G connectivity. A small organization called Simprints that we are connecting and supporting builds biometric devices for frontline workers in healthcare to help to provide a means of collecting data and identification. Generative design is another way that actually helps engineers. So it mimics the evolutionary approach of design as it is happening in nature. So you enter a design goal and engineering constraints, and the software outputs you the most possible or optimized versions. In this, it's a chair that uses the least amount of materials and yet still provides the stability. You see this in this example, this particular piece. You identify where is the load point, where are the various fixed points, and then it builds a lattice that reduces the material as much as possible and yet still be able to constrain, to withhold the strains that may be put onto that piece. We've done a project with Airbus, and we worked on the partitions that go into the cabins and be able to reduce through this process these cabin dividers in weight by 45%. So there are tremendous opportunities where you can actually increase fuel efficiencies as well as reduce the embedded carbon and the carbon footprint. And all of this wouldn't be of great importance if we don't do our share of also providing materials for the next generation of engineers and designers and architects. So far, 4 million learners have accessed our online learning tools to understand sustainability and sustainable design. So this is a very important part because we want to make sure that the next generation really understands how to use these tools. If they have the awareness, as I learned earlier, we want to make sure that they do the right things as well. And it is an opportunity, this is according to the Business Sustainable Development Commission's report, that of the $12 trillion opportunity for implementing the SDGs, 40% are in Asia. So it is a business opportunity. We are happy to say that a lot of the companies that we are working with see this more than just reducing their carbon footprint, but also to build this into a competitive strength, a competitive opportunity to build a leadership position and really make a good business case out of it. So I want to finish with this one here. This is the Apollo 8 Earthrise, the first time we've seen this precious diamond in the infinite vastness of space and realized just how precious it is. One important point there is that I read up that the Apollo guidance computer had about 2,000 words of RAM, which translates roughly in 3.8 kilobytes. If you consider this, what are we using our tools with today? That's an important question. Am I using that 2 gigabyte of RAM sitting in a coffee shop and tell everybody how good my cheesecake is? Or do I actually really use that technology for more important things? And I like to finish with this term, sustainability, something that I never really quite liked because it's more like sustaining things. It's part of my job title, but I like the German word better. Not because I am German, but because it actually implies, at least to me, a future. Nachhaltigkeit means you want to make it sustainable, but you also want to make it sustainable for what happens after me. And so I picked up this other word just not too long ago. It's quite a mouthful. It's called Enkeltauglichkeit. And the thing here is, if you take that literally, it is grandson and fitness. So it is about making fit for your grandchildren. And I think that really speaks to me, because in the end, they are the ones who hold us accountable. And in the end, as I said earlier at the beginning of my presentation, it is personal. Thank you.